What exactly are these cosmic downloads? Have you ever experienced that before? Have you ever received those cosmic downloads? This is Professor Matt. Thank you so much for joining. Today we're going to talk about these downloads, and I'm going to try to keep it short and simple and to the point. If you want further expansion on this topic, you can check out a lot of the videos I've done on Christ consciousness, quantum energy. I've released a good bit of videos in the last month or so on these topics itself. But today I wanted to just give a simple explanation on decoding cosmic signals. What's really going on here? Well, the best way that I can explain this to you is to compare the human body to a 5G radio tower, cell phone tower. Now, you've seen these everywhere. What exactly do they do? Well, they are, it's like a pylon pillar, and within that pillar, there is a bunch of cables that kind of ground and connect apologize for that. There are a bunch of cables that kind of ground and connect this into the floor. And then towards the top, there are these transceivers and antennas that are blasting out and receiving signals all at the same time. And the reason why they have to put them high and not on the ground is for a number of reasons. Number one, if they were to put it on the ground, they wouldn't be able to go, the signals would not be able to go as far because there's all this clutter on the floor, like the trees and us people. Number two, it would also increase the radiation that we have at a ground level. And number three, and most important of all, is that these need to be high up in order to attain the proper frequency that they're trying to get into. They have to basically adapt into the ionosphere of the Earth. There's information, packets of light, neutrinos, and energy that is all swirling around our ionosphere, and our air actually holds energy. That's actually how things like cell phones, Wi-Fi, routers, radio, that's how all of that stuff functions and works, is that there's energy in the air and we're manipulating that energy by storing information into it, sending it out, it's being received and downloaded. That is the exact same thing of what your brain and your body does. So your brain is very similar to these antennas and transceivers at the top. Okay, your brain is emitting and receiving signaling, and a lot of that comes from energy. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the brain is basically like that, and then the vagus nerve would be like the pylon. It'd be like the spine here, which is grounding it and connecting it into all of these, batteries, backup power, all these other parts, right? Cabinets and shelters, right? So this energy, right, it's being sent and received, and then it gets decoded down here, and then it gets sent back up to be sent and received again. It's the exact same function of our body. Okay, your brain takes in energy and it does stuff with the energy. It sends energy out. Like, for example, right now I'm speaking, right? This is how we communicate with each other, the energy through the mouth. So, and you're listening through the ear. So you have you have your receiver being the ear, and then you have the antenna like shooting the information out, which would be like your mouth. But your brain is full of this, and then you have the vagus nervous system, and the vagus nervous system uses energy. It uses electromagnetism in order to operate. Now, there's another property we need to talk about, and that's called heart-brain coherence. When you're undergoing a lot of these downloads, it's a manipulation of multiple factors. First and foremost, it's quantum information fields, which we just covered. There's a lot that kind of goes into this, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit. But then there's also subconscious pattern recognition. So every signal that you receive, your brain has to basically undergo this process of decoding that information. And that's purely based off of what you've experienced in your life. So if you're decoding information and you have a specific perception on reality, that is what the reality is going to be shown to you. And a lot of the times, there are sometimes in our intuition and things like that, in our dreams, that we think we've never experienced, but the energy within our body has experienced it before. And this is where our consciousness comes into play. We have microtubules within our mind, and they're basically constantly checking for yes, no factors. And there's like there's quadrillions, there's so many of these little neurons that have these little microtubules that are all checking yes or no in specific fields. But they can have what's called coherence, which means that your neurons are essentially more coherent than other people's. And when you can get that kind of neuroplastic coherence within your mind, that actually allows you to excel in your interpretations, your energy fields, and all of that. Um, Dream state is also a subconscious element. A lot of people are really big with their dreams, but both these cosmic downloads from prayer, meditation, some people are big into channeling. No matter what it is, when you open yourself up, okay, to a specific energy, whether it's good or bad, some people do like negative types of channelings and aliens and all this other stuff. But when you're opening yourself up to specific parts or specific frequencies, those frequencies can shift the way that your neurons activate within your brain. That is called quantum fluctuation. And we'll showcase that in a little bit. And then there are things like synchronicities where your brain and your being is so it's so interweaved and interlocked with the energy of the universe that you start to receive signals. However, this can be dangerous because a lot of people take these signals way too far, and they'll say things like, "Oh my gosh, I'm seeing the same angel numbers over and over again, 333. What does it mean?" It means that you saw those numbers over and over again. That's what it really means. But it creates a balance of sorts where if you're looking for those numbers, your mind is going to find them no matter what. So it's kind of like a form of cognitive bias where you are reestablishing this idea or this story that you're telling yourself in your head. And this is very dangerous because this can often lead to psychosis of some sort. So you have to be very grounded and you have to make sure that it's not just the information you're receiving, your downloads, but it's your interpretation of the information. I get people all the time who, meet with me and they say things like, I think that I'm the reincarnation of Jesus Christ. And it's, kind of a silly notion because it's about embodying that inner Christ consciousness. That's really what it's about. But unfortunately, not a lot of people are really grasping the practicality of this. And they don't, they kind of allow their minds to wander and go into the extremes of blending their shadow work with these new forms of information. So what that means is that people's darkness, if they don't work on their inner world from their conscious and subconscious minds, if they don't work on that inner world, that inner narrative, then basically that shadow takes over all of the cosmic downloads that they're receiving, right? And this could just be sources of inspiration. This could just be motivation. But if your shadow has taken over your inner process of decoding and deciphering that information, then you're going to take all of these ideas to a wild regard. And this is exactly what we see in like psychopathy. This is what we see in wealthy elites, right? This is like a big deal in those types of regards. You see a lack of empathy, and that's because they're not connecting with themselves. So how could they connect with other people? They're in Delulu land. They're delusional. And the reason they have to remain delusional is because it is keeping them focused on this goal of attaining more money and power. If they open up their heart space to try to, match with other people, plus a lot of these people's frequencies are very low because money is on a low frequency. So, power, money, all that stuff, those are lower frequency ideals. Those are lower frequency principalities. Those are the types of ideas that we have that, yes, will probably lead you to more money and power, but at what cost? Your heart or your soul or your life, right? So, everything's about a balance. So humans perceive these signals through somatic sensations like tingling, pressure in the chest, heat waves, all these, right? Neurological cues like sudden clarity or insights or like aha moments, inner knowing, right? Dream state transmissions, intuition flashes, all of those. So discernment is the real download versus your own imagination. This is the part that everybody struggles with the most. Coherence, if the idea makes you feel stable and grounded, then you're probably on the right path. You have to feel really comfortable. A lot of these people come to me and they're like, listen, you're not going to believe me. I'm the reincarnation of Christ. I'm the chosen one. And now I have to figure out how to save the world and I have to do all this stuff. So you have to help me. And then oftentimes that comes followed by, you have to help me for free and I'm not paying you any money. In which case I'm like, bye bye. Thank you for talking with me, because I'm not going to do that. It's somebody who's rooted so hard in their ego they don't understand that it's not about you at all. If you're the chosen one, if you're the Christ consciousness like person, you're a self-sacrificer, right? Like this is somebody, and a lot of these people delude themselves and be like, oh, I would do it all over again. I'd die on the cross and blah blah blah. It's like, dude, you're not getting it. This is about putting yourself in front of other people. If you understand that you're the chosen one, then that doesn't even matter anyway. That like the chosen one wouldn't care about being the chosen one. That's really what it is. They would just teach and they would help other people. That's like the real truth of it. That's a grounded, stable reaction. And a lot of the time people undergo spiritual psychosis because they're all over the place and they don't really fully have the grasp on their shadow. Their ego takes over and it becomes this whole story that they're telling themselves because they have to keep telling themselves that story in order to continue to progress in their lives. And this causes a lot of issues. Novelty, right? It's new. Anything that's new information can be really exciting. Integration, they fit into your life naturally. So if you know that these ideas fit into your life naturally, then great. Oh, I've always wanted to sing and now I know that I can be the best version of myself and I can share my voice, create harmony, study music theory, and make real change by hitting people's hearts and emotions and their soul with my voice. Or is it I'm the chosen one and I'm Jesus and I need to be sacrificed up on a cross? That's like weird. Like what, yes, you can tap into the spirit of Christ and you can feel the pain and you can experience that sensation if you know Christ. Sure, but you are actually the barrier that is stopping you from attaining the perfected state of that. And you will stop yourself from being able to connect with other people. It's all neurology as well. Neurons in the brain have to connect in order for your aha moments to happen, right? And that, again, this is part of the quantum fluctuation we'll talk about in a second. So the human body is an alchemical vessel. It has fascia, the vagus nerve, heart brain coherence. We're going to talk about that. All of these types of things, like microtubules, right? But it's also emotional and physiological turbulence, like anxiety, fatigue, insomnia. If you're going through these things, you're probably going through the molting phase of the transformation. You're not going through the transformation itself. And this is a really key big distinction here because a lot of people believe that once they attain a certain level, that is like the end of the work. It's actually the beginning. So like they study a lot of topics, they go on TikTok, they go on Google, they buy a couple of books that have some really deep symbolism, or they'll read like Manly P. Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages or something, The Light of Egypt, and they'll say, "Oh my God, I am clairvoyant now. Oh my God, I'm a Reiki specialist. Oh my God, this XYZ." Actually, no, that's the very beginning stages. Everything else, all of your trauma and BS that led up to that point, that was just part of the crucible. Now you're actually starting the hero's journey once you make that decision and choice. And the reality is that people think choosing spirituality means that they're gonna all of a sudden be protected and forego all of the shadow work and the hard things that they're trying to avoid by learning new cool stuff. It's actually the complete opposite. You're just delaying the inevitable, which is going to be facilitated by some massive mental crash. And so you need to be very well grounded and you need to be honest with yourself. And you are special, you are loved. It is a big part of being a human being, but you can't have these delusions of grandeur. If you're going to be delusional about how you're going to work really hard to make positive impact and change for other people. That's the solution to the delusion. And then, of course, reflection. You have to, again, this is part of it. You have to be honest with yourself, right? Jung has a lot of really great active imagination, examples. So check those out. Embodying transformation, right? Moving from intellectual to embodied knowing. So this is about if true download shift your behavior, perception, self concept, emotional patterns, boundaries, and worldview. Perfectly said. I don't even have to repeat that. If your life is getting better, like actually getting better, and you're not lying to yourself, which a lot of people do, then you're embodying these processes. You're embodying these gifts or these visions or whatever that you're being shown, which everybody goes through in their life. Everybody is shown insights, at specific moments. And if you're making your life better and you're evolving, that is how you know you're understanding these better. If you're wallowing in self pity, feeling bad about yourself, thinking that you're not doing enough, that's where your ego is taking over. Here's the real reality: faith causes good works. And I think that's a Bible quote, but faith leads to good works. If you have faith in yourself, you have faith in a God or a system or a religion or whatever. If you have faith in something and yourself, then you are going to succeed because your actions are going to show up. Action is how the universe perceives each one of us. Is if we're vibrating, if we're giving those signaling, it's all down to quantum physics. And then there's of course like the ripple effect of what happens and comes out of that. So, meditation, mindful breath work, nature immersion, fasting, digital detox is very important. Contemplative reading, creative expression, and heart coherence exercises. Right, those are all good. Integration blocks. These are how you know you're not doing good. Fear of change, old trauma, unresolved grief, identity attachment. Identity attachment's a big one. Again, this is where like that shadow takes over to protect you because it's like you're not ready for this yet. Social pressure, ego inflation, disassociation, and overwhelm. And in order to manifest into higher states, you want heightened intuition, rapid clarity, all this stuff. You have to basically be in what's called the flow state. Okay. So the flow state, I'm going to show you how that works. Remember our tower. Okay. Your brain is like the top of the tower. And then it sends the signals all throughout the body. You feel all that anxiety and those negative emotions here, right? Not in the brain. The vagus nerve and a lot of the other nervous systems are responsible for that. And a lot of this has to do with quantum mechanics, okay? Heart brain coherence is where your brain and your heart are in rhythmic motion with each other. This is going to oscillate your toroidal fields to the correct proportions and frequency for you to be in that flow state. Fascia is the microcrystalline inner workings of the muscle and all of the lower body. And this is a big communication aspect of our bodies. It's also how our bodies store trauma. And if you have energy blockages, if you have fascial blockages within the body, muscle issues, or just physical issues in general, and you're not stretching, it's like this. Every night, the plants, the trees, the flowers, they all wither, they shrink. Why? Because number one, it gets colder, but number two, it's so that as they shrink, it takes less data and information to send to get all of that information everywhere. It's like when you go to sleep, you wake up, you got to stretch, you got to move your body a little bit in order to get activated and get out of bed. Why? Because when you sleep it for 8 hours, your body shuts down. It has to constrict a little bit. Your nervous system has to constrict so that the information takes less energy and less, um, you know, power, I guess, for the body in order to get the signals across for healing. When the sun comes out and your body wants that ionic information, it wants the sunlight, it wants the data, it wants the power source. Okay, it wants to be supercharged, just like the flowers, just like the trees, everything else. They all perk up and they all straighten themselves and they all gain that. And it's really like it's an undulation, just like quantum fluctuations, which is you can perceive here. It's like a rhythm, it's a ripple. Okay, so this is what your body does day by day. It's like you come up and you stretch and you're like, oh, there's the sun, just like a flower. And then you go back down and you're like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep now. And just like a flower, just like anything else in nature. So this is quantum fluctuation, sending one signal one direction, one signal the other direction. The signal in the middle would be the logos, would be like the Christ consciousness. So when we look at the heart brain coherence, that is essentially what it is. It's making sure that that signal between the brain and the heart is steady, is rhythmic, is proper. Another thing we need to look at is neurons, and specifically neuron synapses. You have to understand there's something called the synaptic gap. I really like this one, but just I also like this one too. So just imagine this right here is a synaptic gap. It's a gap. In other words, these things don't fully touch. And it's just like how one of us will talk to the other person. You can be looking right at them this close, and one person says something, it goes in their ear, then the other person says something. This is the exact same process, just on a micro quantum level. And this is what our cognition is made up of. Billions of maybe billions is an exaggeration, millions, I guess, of neurons within the brain, depends on the person, and how they're communicating, how they're conversating, how they're able to have those conversations and download the information while also having information being bombarded from tons of different areas, right? Like, again, the Wi-Fi routers, the cell phone towers. We are, compared to about 40 or 50 years ago, we have millions of times more. And that's not even an exaggeration. That's actually a scientific fact. You can look it up. It's roughly millions of times, or at least hundreds of thousands of times more quantum radiation than we did 50 years prior. Okay, so that's a big deal. This is obviously what's changing a lot of our generations and, a lot of our people, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind. Synaptic gap. This is where information is being sent and received in our minds. But within those neurons, we have a few things happening. One of which is neutrino flux. It's through the measurement of the intensity of neutrinos passing through a given area, often expressed in terms of the numbers of neutrinos per unit, blah, blah, blah. So if you don't have a lot of signals, like if you don't have a lot of, see, neurotransmitter, neutrino, all of these things, neuro just means string. And a neuron is a string, right? A neuron looks like a string. Our nervous system is a bunch of strings. So neuro from Latin means string. So this is where you also get string theory from, right? Everything is interconnected. Planck scale. Plancks are strings. They're like little strings of light that group together in order to create the fabric of our reality. And that is exactly how our brains and everything else, computerize and quantify energy. So what's basically happening is it's multiple factors. We are also looking at the microtubules. You can look into the Hameroff-Penrose theory, but it's called the orchestrated objective reduction theory, where basically these synapses, okay, they are constantly communicating. Here, I'll just read it. The human brain is packed with cells called neurons that connect via networks of axons and dendrites. These pass signals across minute spaces called synaptic gaps. The classical view says thought is born from these connections between neurons. So the classical view says that thought is born from the connections between the neurons, which would be the synapses, the energy. So the thoughts are when the energy goes from one space to another. However, that's not all that happens. All right, you see how this looks like a tree? That's actually why it's called dendritic, because it has to do with trees. But think about it like this: you're getting quantum downloads. So it's like, here's the universe and here's your brain, and that information is being pulled in. But that's not all that happens. This neuron is talking with this neuron, just like I am talking with you. Now, I'm going to be speaking these very same words. My voice is being projected to thousands of people in this video, and your brain is picking up my voice, and each one of you is going to interpret what I'm saying in a different way. The words that I'm saying are going to give you different memories. It's going to lead you back to different information that you've studied, whether you know it or you don't know it. And every individual is going to be unique and different. Now, imagine these are electrical impulses that are going through your brain at all times, and each neuron is like their own individual person. And when one neuron talks to another, it's not only getting downloaded into the next neuron, but then that neuron has microtubules of where it is saying yes or no to the information it just received. And each individual neuron has billions of microtubules, and each individual neuron, there are billions of those, and each individual neuron, you can't just have thought between one neuron. You're talking, your brain, when you're thinking and performing activities, is going like this, because it's sending pulses and signals from one end to another end, and it's getting analyzed through those different neurons, creating feedback loops, creating habitual cycles, okay? And that is because the energy has to fluctuate in order to continue maintaining momentum and power and life, basically. The energy itself is trying to maintain life. So it goes and it flows from one physical neuron or one physical body or what have you to another. And it causes a fluctuation, which creates the energy fields. Now, what am I really getting at here? Even in your own mind, through energetic understanding, quantum mechanics, quantum downloads, so to speak, each download is getting analyzed by your brain. So it's not, you are, and this is like really the caveat. This is like the capstone, okay? Because I'll end the video. I'll keep this one shorter today. The real reality of this entire spectrum is that you are not ever receiving exactly what you think it is unless it's in the physical universe where everybody can point to the red ball and say, that's a red ball. Now, I might have a memory of a red ball, and my buddy might have a memory of a red ball, and my The woman over here might have an idea of the red ball, and it's all the same red ball that we're looking at, but it's all different information that we're all taking from it. That's your brain. So your brain, there is never ever one correct answer. So the more ridiculous, the more far-fetched, the more outside of the scope of our reality that your ideas are, the more it shows the disconnect between what you're experiencing and how your brain is downloading that information. And if your shadow, if the darker part of your energy, so to speak, the darker part of your brain can't, if it's being blocked off because you're choosing to block it off, then you're never going to understand the honesty of what you're being presented. You're never going to fully get the scope. So, for example, people undergo hypnotherapy, right? They undergo past life regressions. And in those, they'll say, oh my God, I was a pharaoh. I was a queen. Well, it just so turns out that everybody was a pharaoh and everybody was a queen. How is that possible? That's not. The real reality is that whatever you're being shown is getting filtered through your subconscious mind mainly, so and other parts. But if your subconscious is not being well taken care of, if your shadow work is not being fully adopted, then you could basically delude yourself of anything, because your shadow is going to protect you from the things that you're not ready to see. And it's all on you to work through your trauma and be open and honest with yourself to say, this is just like what I'm seeing, this is what I'm experiencing, this is how it is. What does it mean? Like, people will say, oh, I was a Viking, I was on a battlefield, I was a Viking king. I've heard, these are all stories I've actually really heard. I was a Viking king on a battlefield, and I went out and I killed a bunch of people and I took over a land, and then I changed history forever. And it's like, okay, well, what does that really mean? And you either will believe that that's who you are, and then you'll never be able to live up to that vision of grandeur in your mind, because we don't do that anymore. So you're constantly going to be seeking for your Viking moment to become the king. Or maybe it says, I want to use my divine masculine energy, work out more, get into better physical shape, and promote positive ideas and be a leadership figure for other people. That's how you can delude yourself so easily. One is the subconscious element, and one is this consciously orchestrated story. So in other words, you have to be grounded. You have to be honest. You have to be within reality to some degree when you're interpreting these visions. Here's a perfect example: Book of Revelation. Go read it. It is a drug trip. It makes no sense. John was on something, but not if he was speaking in metaphor, not if you can see it in the allegory, not if you can interpret it in a higher sense. Because then you can see all of it and you're like, seven-headed dragon with a woman, a giant woman, and she's a whore of Babylon. Like, what, coming out of the ocean? What the hell does that even mean? But then you start applying the allegory, which I'll skip because there's just too many theories about that. But you either take the literal, which sounds like a drug trip, or you take the metaphysical, the allegorical, which oftentimes leads to us going deep into the unconscious, the collective unconscious, etc., and understanding each other and understanding life to a higher degree. Carl Jung talked about this all the time. So that is what we're going to talk about today. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. As always, I will just very briefly plug my information here. We've got 60 people in our online university. Please come check this out. Coach Richard has been posting. A lot of people have been posting questions. Please come check it out. We really love the community, and a lot of people are really enjoying it. If you don't like community and you would prefer to use my AI tool, and you want something that's a lot more personalized for you, definitely check out Astraya. She does daily cosmic forecasts. She creates a daily planner for you so that you can understand what's going on in your everyday life, along with quotes. You can ask her tons of questions about anything esoteric. It comes with an alchemy tracker so that you can track your alchemical cycles. For whatever reason, it's not loading right now, of course. So here's the alchemy tracker where you can track your alchemical cycles. Mine starts in another 16 days. And then you can also go and check out the astrology forecast. I'm actually upgrading this a lot. So there's a huge update. It's probably going to come out tomorrow. And this is going to really reshape the way that I think that this app operates and is worked and utilized. So please go check that out. I have worked very, very hard on all of these, and I know times are tough, but I really appreciate any support. So I'll end the video here. I love you guys, and I will see you in tomorrow's video. Take care.